Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to wait a minute or two to start while people join. Welcome, everyone. Hello. If you just joined, we're excited to get started in about a minute. While you're waiting, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from, whether you're a CFP, a financial coach, or a nonprofit professional. Let us know what organization you're with. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to get started. My name is Rachel Roth. I'm Senior Director of Grants and Programs at the Foundation for Financial Planning. I'm here with my colleague Jordan Tobias, Manager of Grants and Programs, and of course, Laura LaTourette, who I will introduce in a few minutes. We're so pleased to be here today for our webinar, Helping Older LGBTQ plus Americans Navigate Retirement, with Certified Financial Planner and CFP Board Ambassador Laura LaTourette. This webinar is eligible for CFP and AFC continuing education credit. If you're a CFP, we'll submit your credit to the CFP board. And all of the AFCs in the audience will need to submit a code to AFCPE themselves. And I will let you know the code at the end of the webinar, and we'll also email it out. But before we introduce our speaker, I'd love to spend a few minutes talking about FFP and the work that we do to expand access to pro bono financial planning. So why pro bono financial planning? We know that millions of Americans can't access high-quality, ethical pro bono financial advice and guidance. More than half of Americans don't have savings to cover a $1,000 unexpected expense. And of course, there are groups that are especially at risk: people facing serious illness, victims of natural disaster, women, veterans, members of the military, and others. So for almost 30 years, the Foundation for Financial Planning's goal has been to help communities in need by creating better access to high-quality financial advice and guidance. We do this in three major ways. First, we develop and support pro bono financial planning programs and partnerships with nonprofits across the country. We provide grant funding, technical assistance, and other resources to ensure that FFP-supported programs are effectively reaching those most in need of service. We recruit and train financial advisors to do pro bono. We connect them directly to volunteer opportunities through our volunteer platform, probonoplannermatch.org. And third, we lead the movement to foster pro bono service within the profession via original research, industry partnerships, and public awareness activities. We also offer a number of resources to support pro bono financial planning. First, we have our pro bono financial planning volunteer training. We encourage you all to take it. It's a free 1-hour online module that helps advisors and others understand the basics of how to provide pro bono service to those who need it in our community. The training's approved for 1 hour of continuing education credit by the CFP board. And we also offer things like worksheets, webinars, user-friendly disclosures for your pro bono engagements, and much more. So please check out our website. We have a whole resource center for both nonprofits and for advisors. Pro Bono Planner Match, which I mentioned, is our platform which connects CFP professionals with volunteer opportunities at nonprofits nationwide. Nonprofits register on the site and post volunteer opportunities. And then CFP professionals can register, check out those volunteer opportunities to provide pro bono, and then sign up for the opportunities. Just be in touch with me or Jordan if you want to learn more. And then finally, we provide E&O liability insurance, complimentary for advisors who connect with a pro bono opportunity through probonoplannermatch.org or volunteer with any of FFP's grantees. So I encourage everyone that's here today to just get involved however you can. You can register on Pro Bono Planner Match, sign up to receive the latest news from the Foundation for Financial Planning, or support our gift with a mission. Your work really matters. It matters to us. It matters to those in need who don't have access to financial advice, and we wouldn't be able to do it without you. And with that, we're thrilled to have Laura LaTourette here to join us today. Laura is the founder of Family Wealth Management Group, and her practice is focused on financial planning and legacy planning for women, allies, and LGBTQ plus clients nationwide. She currently serves as a CFP board ambassador, a SAGE ambassador, and a Pride Planners Knowledge Circles host, where she guides colleagues on their journeys from allies to advocates, and we're really happy to have her here today. Welcome, Laura. The floor is yours. And just a reminder, please place any questions that you have in the Q&A tool, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the Financial Planning Foundation to have me here as well, because it's really exciting. I remember when it started. I've been in the business about 30 years, so I do remember when it all started. It's really cool to be here. And so my intro is just, I work with a lot of LGBTQ plus clients as well as allies, advocates, women. And I decided that I really needed to celebrate and educate. I speak at conferences, write articles, I'm on podcasts, and I've done that in the last several years, coming out nationally in the financial services industry, because I realized there was a void. There weren't a lot of voices like mine out in the world. Although we were together, like in small groups or individually, with our clients, there really wasn't a lot of discussion out nationally. So I wanted to help make a change with that and be a beacon or a role model to those who are afraid to come out or not able to be themselves. So that's why I'm here, and I appreciate y'all being here. Sorry about a couple of weeks ago, I had an emergency come up and I just hated having to miss it. So thank you for coming back a couple of weeks later. I really do appreciate you joining me today. So one of the things I like to do first is I like to take a poll. I like to say, who's in the room? Who's with us? And so you'll be getting a poll here up on the screen, and I want you to answer the question. This is anonymous, so you can tell us who you are. But how many of you know someone in the LGBTQ community? So if you'll answer yes, no, or not sure, that'd be great. How many of you know someone? And then the second question would be, well, how many of you have family members in the LGBTQ community? And again, yeah, I know for sure. No, I'm not sure. Answer honestly if you can. Third question would be, how many attendees identify as LGBTQ? We have to self-identify. You can't really know I'm lesbian just by looking at me. So unless I tell you that, you don't know my identity and how I see myself, who I am. And then the last one is, how many are you consider yourselves allies and advocates? So you're not LGBTQ, but you know someone who is, or someone in your family who's close to you, and you really feel like you are an ally for us. And even more so, you're an advocate. And we'll talk more about that too. So there's our poll. And now it looks like when we're looking at the numbers and we look at the very first number, 88%, 89% know someone in the LGBTQ community. And we find that a lot. We've got 1% who's not sure. But when you look at that statistic, everybody knows somebody, right? We really do. Number two, the question was, well, how many of you have family members? Actually, 63% have family members that are in the LGBTQ community. And there's a few of you who are not sure. 12% say, I'm not sure. But you kind of suspect maybe. Number three, how many attendees identify as LGBTQ? And this is oftentimes a lower number. This is 18% here. And that's interesting to me that there's only 18% of the attendees. So the cool thing is we've got a lot of allies, a lot of advocates, a lot of folks who want to learn more about it. And that's exciting to me. And then the fourth one is, of course, am I an ally, an advocate? And 68% say yes. And I'm not sure, but want to learn more is 28%. So that's really cool too. So you are an ally, you know for sure you're doing some things. Advocates actually speak up for us and say things that are, more intentional. And then what I'm seeing is there are quite a few of you that really do want to learn more. So thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate it. So let's just go on into it and figure, let's get you some information. Okay, so first we're going to talk about some of the recent trends. And, there's a lot of facts out there and there's a lot of information. The LGBTQ plus community is growing rapidly, and there's a significant portion of us approaching retirement age. So this presentation will explore some of those key facts about us because I want to educate you into what our current situation is, some of our history, and challenges we face. And then I'll provide you with some solutions, strategies, and resources for you to be able to better equip yourself to work with us in the community. So if we get started, when I first began looking at this, I started with myself in the community and I said, well, I know about myself, I know about my local community, but I didn't know a lot about the community at large. So I began researching and I found Sage USA. So Sage USA is an organization, nonprofit, one of the largest organizations and the oldest that help to understand who the elders in the LGBTQ community are and what resources we can use to help them. So I applied to become an educational ambassador for Sage USA, and I began taking just their online class. It helps you, well, that's what you need to be eligible to be an ambassador. And then you find that you can look at their place for more resources. They say that 51% of elders are worried that they don't have enough money to retire as they age. And that's compared to 36% of the general population. So it really got me wondering why. Although in 2023, the CFP board did a survey as well that was a lot of good news for us because it found that 66% of LGBTQ clients realized that they were better off and they felt good about retirement. But that's because they were working with a financial advisor. So what you'll see is not a lot of people are working with us, and so we might need to reach out intentionally. And that's why the pro bono just makes sense. So in March of 2024, their Gallup poll came out, and 7.6% of the US population identify as LGBTQ. And that's actually up a couple of percentages from the last 4 years. So we're excited to see that more and more people are self-identifying. 67% of Americans support same-sex marriage. The older generation's a little harder on us than the younger generation, but 67% is still a good number. And actually 76% of Americans support and want LGBTQ Americans protected from discrimination when we talk about housing, employment, and public accommodations. So that's a really good number to see as well. In April of 2024, this year, the HRC came out with some information again, of course, and their campaign and their foundation, which is the educational arm for LGBTQ, they released a report that their current survey said roughly half or 48% of LGBTQ adults say that they are financially unwell. And that's where we start worrying about everybody, because that's compared to about 25% of general population. Now, both BIPOC and younger groups, 18 to 24 LGBTQ plus adults, are even more likely to say that they are financially unwell. So that is really disturbing information. April of 2024, I don't know if you're following the debt-free guys. I follow them. They do Queer Money podcast, and I really like a lot of what they have to say. They joined Motley Fool in 2023 and then again updated it in 2024. And they have a survey about financial discrimination. So more than half, 55%, of LGBTQ Americans have experienced discrimination by someone in the financial services industry. And that number is even higher for our transgender Americans, 74% of whom report having been discriminated against by someone in the financial services industry. So that's why we need you to really look at this and find out how you can help. Jordan, can you move my slide to the next one? So the challenges that face us are unique in some ways when it comes to retirement planning. So this presentation, we're going to explore several of those key factors that have had a lasting impact on our financial security in our golden years. And first, what I want to do is I want to identify the three generations within our community to help you navigate through some of the conversations. Then we'll examine the historical events and ongoing effects of HIV and AIDS, institutional discrimination, and other society factors that have left many elder LGBTQ individuals unprepared for retirement. Lastly, I'll provide you with some solutions, strategies, and resources for you to use when working with these folks to educate yourself and help guide your clients towards a more sustainable financial future. Flip the page, Jordan. There are several reasons why LGBTQ folks may have saved less in retirement, and this slide describes some of them. You know, when I look at the financial challenges, I know that there are some things that are the same for all of us. We all have had issues with institutional discrimination. Every generation has. We all lack social and family support, some more than others. There's also an industry trend that we see. There's a high cost of living where we tend to congregate because maybe we feel more comfortable, we have a place of belonging in some of the more higher cost living areas in the country. LGBTQ people of color and transgender individuals face even more financial disparities. So who are we? Jordan, if you want to move the screen. You know, I like to look at it this way. We are the most diverse community there is. We gather because we feel a belonging in this group. We come from every culture, every country, city, and rural areas, every color, every race, every religion and spiritual background. We are highly educated and also have limited education. We are old and we are young. And this combination of humanness, to me, creates the most beautiful mosaic of colors, like flowers in a garden. We don't want to just blend in. We want to be individuals, but we also want to be part of the larger community. So there are things that we have in common. And some of those things are like, all of us have a coming out story. All of us have felt the sting of discrimination. We often feel a basis of trust, just knowing there's another LGBTQ person in the room. We can feel it. And we do refer to each other as being in the family. Our group is defined by our sexual preference and our gender identity. And these are felt deeply in personal ways, and we present them in different ways. So what we ask of you, don't assume to know us and generalize our humanness in some slick category. Rather, we prefer you ask open-ended questions and seek to know us from the heart. We are comprised of 3 generations, and we have experienced some of the same things, but in different times in our lives, and that impact makes our concerns unique. So there's the silence generation, the pride generation, and millennials. Let's talk more about it. So all 3 generations have experienced institutional discrimination. It has been a persistent barrier for my LGBTQ community. We have faced historical and ongoing challenges in areas like employment, housing, and healthcare. And we've continued ongoing discrimination, which makes it difficult to secure stable employment with good benefits, including employer-sponsored retirement plans. And additionally, the fear of discrimination in areas like healthcare or elder care may lead LGBTQ individuals to delay retirement or leave the workforce altogether. The next thing we're going to talk about is AIDS. Although HIV/AIDS is not eliminated today, the HIV/AIDS crisis, in particular in the 1980s, had a devastating impact on the silence and pride generations of the LGBTQ community, particularly gay men. Many were diagnosed young and in their prime earning years, and this led to lost wages due to illness and the society stigma that surrounded the disease. Additionally, the high cost of treatment placed a significant burden on their finances, leaving them with fewer resources to save for retirement. I remember living through that as a young woman in the 80s and having people die and having communities being wiped off the map because so many people were dying of AIDS. And it was the LGBTQ community that had to come up with the funding, fundraising, and research because we were often left on our own to do that. So many didn't think that they would even live to retirement age, and they certainly didn't set any money aside because of it. So in social and family support, we do see some differences. So when we look at this slide here, the LGBTQ elders may be estranged from their families of origin. So the oldest folks in our community, which we call the silence generation, often in their 80s, they don't have children. They were also estranged from families, so they often lived apart from their families. And so they've created what we would call formal families, just to make sure that they had some support. The problems with it, of course, is that as they age, the peers all age, and then we get into some real disparity. Who's going to take care of who? Do I have assisted living to go into? Are they friendly? Do I have to go back in the closet? So there's a lot of issues with our elders in this area when it comes to senior centers, assisted living, long-term care facilities. Isolation is a real problem for us, and isolation causes more mental health issues and financial stress. So some things change and some things don't. And so the reason why I wanted to bring this up, there are some things you should know about us. The silence generation, being that it was illegal to love the one that you loved, it caused a lot of mental health issues, but it also caused a lot of secrecy and privacy. And they're still like that today. They still get worried about telling everyone, even though people know, they still may live apart. They still don't have children or family support. And they may even still be living with AIDS, HIV. The Pride generation, which is my generation, started in the Stonewall area, right? And in 1973, finally, being part of the LGBTQ community was not a mental health illness anymore. And so that really helped us. in a lot of ways, because we could at least be a little more open about it. But then we also still had issues with AIDS and HIV. And then Don't Ask, Don't Tell came in trying to help us, and it didn't. Many of my peers were kicked out of the military and were shunned in a lot of ways. So sometimes we saw that even though the community or the United States was trying to be more accepting, more open, more understanding, we still had a lot of discrimination that we were dealing with. And the protests came out, and we as a community said, we're not going to do this anymore. You can't just be mean to us because we love someone of the same sex. And then the millennial generations, that's the third generation, right? And so they are strong. They are out. A lot of them are coming out younger even, and we're all amazed. Marriage equality was part of their beginnings, maybe because it happened in 2015. So sometimes the millennials don't understand the fight that we went through to get to marriage equality, but they enjoy the fact that they can get married. They have employer ERGs, employer resource groups were not part of anything as I was coming into the workforce, or silence generation. They have peer support. They're out and proud. I love to see them because they're proud of who they are, and they're helping people understand what language they use and how to be respectful and kind. And they started using pronouns. The generation in my generation or before us didn't even understand the pronouns either. We had to understand what they were. So we weren't condescending to our younger folks. So sometimes things like that, when you assume something about someone, you may be making them feel bad because of what terms you're using. So you think of the word queer. I always think of the word queer and how do we use it? Well, the silence generation doesn't. That's a bad word to them. The millennials, they use it all the time. In fact, that's where the Q came from. So, there's different ways that they have taken back some of those things that they were refusing to use against us. Being out. Silence generation typically is not out. And if they are, it's very small private groups. Even I had some clients finally get married in their 80s. And they were very quiet about it. They didn't want everyone to know. They had a very quiet service. And I kept saying, but you need to do it for your transfer of wealth. It's so important. They still live separately. They still have the different last names. Not a lot of people know it, but they did it because it's good for wealth transfer. And at least they honored my, recommendations because of that. The pride generation, you say queer to us, we're fine with that, pretty much. Some people may take offense to it. You can't use it in a derogatory way, but we don't use it that often. When you think about family acceptance is a real different feeling, because the younger group, they have a lot of family acceptance. Their parents accept them, or maybe at least mom. Sometimes, dad has a different problem, and I know I'm generalizing there, but that's what I see in my practice. I've had client call me recently last year, and he said, now what do I do? My oldest granddaughter just graduated high school, and she's telling us that she's a lesbian and she's going to college. What do we do? I said, well, you look at that child and you say, I love you, and thank you for telling me. Thank you for being honest and help me understand who you are. Because he said, well, my daughter's upset. Her mom's upset. What did we do wrong? I said, tell her to call me. You didn't do anything wrong. And if you will accept and love that person, and you will be able to communicate with her, it's really good for your granddaughter. And I will talk to your daughter. So he thanked me for being on the phone with him and couldn't understand how it all happened. But we are made as we are made. Human beings are who they are. So, I don't know why she decided that that's who she is today. But sometimes you see there's more conversations. And thank goodness we in the Pride generation will have those conversations with people. I've had many conversations with parents of adult LGBTQ. So you see, there's lots of different things there. The other difference we're seeing is transgender. Transgender folks are coming out at a younger age. They've always been here. When I first looked at information and trying to understand the transgender group of people years ago, what I found out with researching and on reading the information from SAGE and other organizations, that at that time, years ago, there were more transgender folks who were Vietnam vets. It was an older population that was coming out transgender. Now what we're seeing is younger folks identifying, this is who I am as a person. And it must be really hard to be in a body that when you look in the mirror, it doesn't match who you feel like you are inside. So the general population is coming to terms with it. You see millennials not having a problem with any of it. Pride generation, we're accepting it. We want to know more. We want to understand. The silence generation may still be questioning because they know folks who are that way, but they don't want to talk about things. So when you're talking to your clients, let them tell you who they are. Let them tell you who's important to them. Let them tell you who's their trusted contacts, who's part of their family. Don't assume that you know anything. Just help them understand. Tell me more. And maybe even use some of their fact finders that you use in your business and have them more open-ended so that they can put pronouns, or they can put significant others, or they can put their wives if they're a female, so that it's not written in such a straight way. To adapt the forms that you're using, I think is really one of the minimal things that you can do to help support our community. Okay, Jordan, let's go to the next slide. So, we've talked a little bit about the history, some unique challenges, especially faced by the older LGBTQ, and I'll provide some resources at the end, but let's move on to some strategies. I wanted to talk about how financial advisors can be armed with information that can empower LGBTQ clients to focus on retirement and really, have some well-being. And this is one of the most significant things that happened in our community. The Supreme Court passed the Marriage Equality Act in June of 2015. That was momentum. That was an event everyone in our community will remember where they were. I know when I talk to peers, the silence generation, and even millennials, I say, where were you? How did you celebrate? My wife and I were at the airport dropping off a friend, and it came on the news on the airport screens, and we were like, what? I mean, we actually had to sit down. We said, you could tell I'm just like speechless. We were speechless. We were like, what just happened? Did it really happen? We didn't expect it in our lifetime, but it happened. We had friends from all over the country getting legally married in different states, either that they had lived in those states or other states that it was legal. And we live in Georgia, and we decided as a couple, we are not going to get married somewhere else. We're going to wait till Georgia makes it legal. We want to be married in our county, in our home, with our friends. And we're going to wait until this happens. Yes, we had a commitment ceremony years prior to this. And in 2015, we were actually together 21 years. So we got married in our house in February of 2016 because of this. So it's a huge event for most of us. And if you ask your clients about it, or you talk about where they were, even if they're not married, they know where they were. It meant a lot to all of us. Now, not everyone does get legally married. Some of the elders in the silence generation are still trapped in fear and secrecy. But when it comes to their primary relationships, because of trauma that they've endured over the years, I think you need to be really sensitive to see, what does it mean to you to be married? Would it be good for you to be married as far as benefits go? Because many of them don't understand that there could be Social Security benefits, that there's definitely a benefit to wealth transfer strategies. There's a benefit to preferences and how you leave beneficiary money to your significant other if you're not married. And of course, there's government and corporate benefits. So you really need to talk about this with your clients. You really need to talk about it with the people that you know in our community and make sure that they understand some of those choices and some of those reasons why it might be beneficial to get married. They can do it quietly if they don't want a big public event. That's okay. But also, if you understand what some of the issues are and you understand why it would be important, then you would be better to support them. The next slide we talk about is Social Security. And this is just one strategy I thought I would bring to you. Pride Planners at FPA, Financial Planning Association, has had a speaker talk about Social Security benefits for LGBTQ couple of times, one time this year and last year. We're not able to record it. So if you want to see that again, let me know and maybe we'll have her come back in 2025 because it was really well attended. The Social Security website actually has been updated and it is more inclusive. It's so cool to see some of this language on the website and in government documents. So if you look at this website right here, and we took some information off it, one of the things you're going to see is gender identity updates. So we are trying to see some things that are proactive and good for folks that are transgender. So you don't need to provide medical or legal evidence of your sex designation. You can change your sex identity to either male or female, but there are ways to provide for unspecified sex identification options in the future. So this is really important, I think, to understand why this would be important for one of your clients if they see themselves in this way, right? So the other thing that we're seeing with Social Security is they have some really good brochures available now. They have some things that we can see are going to be helpful to you to give to your clients. There's some things there that they use for if you were not able to get married and you were wanting to claim some benefits because you were not able to get married before 2015 and you lived in a state that did not have same-sex marriage benefits, then you could also be able to claim those now. So, there's some good things up there. You've got to go to the Social Security website. I give a lot of things to my clients, and some of them are right from Social Security Administration. They provide a practical guide for survivors of benefits of LGBTQ couples, and you might even qualify for benefits. So that's why I think it's important to look at it. You can go to the website and just Google LGBTQ, and we will be providing some things through this presentation, and you'll be getting some copies of some links that I think that you'll find interesting if you're wanting to learn more. So we've discovered that retirement for planning for LGBT individuals can have some unique considerations. Let's explore some valuable resources to help you assist in your guide. Financial planners play a vital role when helping with wealth information. And I think sometimes we don't really understand what's out there. So I decided to put a few things in this presentation to help you know where to find things. So Sage National, and you will be provided the link. sageusa.org is a national organization. It's actually the largest and oldest organization dedicated to the LGBTQ plus community. And it talks about aging, offering resources for financial security, healthcare, and community. They have things like Sage Sense, which is a way to help with pro bono. It's kind of an online financial literacy program. They also go into healthcare agencies and facilities, and they help do training on how to care for LGBTQ for the healthcare industry. They provide a lot of statistics and help the media understand different resources. They also provide in some areas centers where LGBTQ people can gather, because it's important for our generations to get together too. So they started something called Sage Table, where you can have your own Sage Table and they'll give you some ideas, but you come together with different generations and talk about how things are in the community, where are the resources, what can you do to help support. So Sage National is really something that for me has been a go-to. I pull it up all the time. I also get monthly information because I am an ambassador. If you want to become an ambassador, just go on the Sage and you can query on ambassador or educational ambassador. There's ways to connect. And it'll go to the National Resource Center for LGBT, which is also part of Sage. Sage is leading a lot of programs for legacy and to help us understand how to support our elders, because it's really a crisis where you're seeing elder transgender folks as well as gay men. They have nowhere to live. Maybe they're not able to live in a high rise in Miami or New York. They need to have support in the rural areas or other places that they reside. So it's a super good organization for information. The National Center for Lesbian Rights, me being a lesbian, I love that site, talk about estate planning and just, it gives you really good information again about legal issues impending us. Family equality, a lot of folks in the millennial generation are creating their families. You would see prior generations, silence generations, they don't have a lot of kids. A lot of times maybe left family or left a marriage before they had children. The pride generation, which is me, we oftentimes had children and then got divorced. You just saw that as a trend. And so we might have children that we are not estranged from. I'm lucky that my two children are very supportive of me and my wife. But then you also have the millennials. Well, the millennials are planning. I mean, they're having children, IVF, surrogacy, they are putting money aside to be able to support having a family. So when we look at family equality, very different issues with different generations. And I'm generalizing here, right? I mean, not all millennials want families. Not every person wants to have children, even in the pride or the silence generation. So I'm not generalizing in a way. When someone comes in my office, I ask them who's part of their family, understand if they are biological or adopted children, but I'm not assuming just because of whatever generation they are that they want to have kids or they do. The other thing is the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. The Human Rights Campaign keeps lots of different data, and I would suggest you go there to just update yourself and understand, corporate responsibility as well as the educational arm, which is helping you understand what the civil rights are that we should have and the battles we're fighting. Same thing with Lambda Legal, but you'll see that there's over 500 legislative issues around the country against the LGBTQ community. So that's why this year, especially, voting is so important. But it's very important every time we turn around. We seem to be dragged into the political discussion all the time. So that helps you understand, not only the history and where we've come, because we have come far in some ways. We still have a lot of work to do. And then Lambda Legal sometimes too will help folks who don't have any money in the LGBTQ community with lawsuits. And they also, do a lot of nonprofit work and education. Good program too for people, still living with AIDS. They were right on the forefronts of helping understand what would be the legal rights for people who did have HIV and AIDS. So if we move to the next program or the next part of the resources, financial services associations years ago didn't have anything. We're seeing that there are there's some progress. There are some folks like myself who are volunteering their time and effort and really trying to make sure that there are programs and networking events and things that we can go to. So the Financial Planning Association has Pride Planners. Years ago, they were two separate organizations. They combined before the pandemic. I don't remember exactly, but they combined several years ago, and we're trying to have what we call knowledge circles at the FPA. We have a monthly program that is open to all FPA members, and we focus on LGBT issues, all financial, legal, those types of situations. We do usually get a pretty good crowd. We also have online chat through the FPA where you can ask questions and get back information. So it's a really good start. Let's put it that way. They just had a conference, the annual conference. We meet at the annual conference and network there as well. And there are chapters who oftentimes get together and meet, or at least do things that showing up on our national level. So the CFP board has a directory of CFPs, and we now have LGBTQ planning listed. We're hoping that we can kind of get it up at the top of the list, but right now you have to go in and find a planner per location and then go down to services provided. But LGBTQ planning is part of services provided. So if you are a CFP and you're on the directory, make sure you add that to your profile. Super information. I get queries all the time from the CFP board website because people are looking for LGBTQ advisors. The consumers can't find us. They're having a really hard time finding us. So I say to everyone, try to be out there as much as you're comfortable, as much as you can, because it's important for everyone to find us. The Affirming Advisor is a brand new directory. It's creating a safe place for LGBTQ community and allies. And you go online and you do a eligibility online educational workshop webinar there. Good information, especially for allies. Tries to help you understand what some of the financial goals are and just the language. You know, what some of the glossary of terms are and just some of the things that are helpful information. And then you can be an affirming advisor and put it on your LinkedIn profile or your website and those types of things. I did that last June and thought it was good, good information, and would highly recommend that. So the next thing would be networking opportunities. And females in finance, I didn't get listed on here and really should have, because females in finance has an affinity group. It's called Unity. I think it's called Unity. And it is part, yes, it is. Okay, it is on the slide. Fabulous. Okay, it's a part of Females in Finance, and they gather and do workshops. They do networking. They have an online presence on LinkedIn, really good community. So I would say, you know, check that out as well. Out in Finance is a network of LGBTQ professionals outside of Chicago. Out in Finance started there, but what they do is events in different cities around the country. So you become a member for free. You're in the directory. It's not really available for consumers yet. We're hoping that they may do some more consumer facing things in the future. But right now it's a way to know where the events are. They just had one in Atlanta. They've had them in Boston, Chicago, and they do a lot of networking events for not only financial planners, bankers, CPAs, attorneys. They're trying to gather all of us to be able to network together. National Gay Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, they're the largest advocacy program organization for us, and they are the exclusive certifying body for LGBT owned businesses. So if you own your business, you can be certified. I'm certified as a lesbian-owned business the last several years. But you can be a member of that chamber. And again, it's a good networking and people can find you, and if you have all these things listed when they Google you, you come up at a higher rate because you're involved in the community. Lavender Law is for attorneys. That's pretty much around the country, actually. They provide education and networking. They do CEs for attorneys. They also do advocacy. They've been around quite a while and they have a large membership. I'm not sure as a financial advisor if you can join Lavender Law because you're not an attorney, but you definitely can hook up with them at their events and network with them as well. And then lastly, there's consumer resources. These are, again, they're just a couple of things. AARP actually does have a lot of good resources. Go in there and Google. You can see that they've had articles on healthcare, retirement, lifestyle. I mean, all sorts of different things in their repertoire, online and printed. Sage Sense is actually from Sage. It's the digital tool to help LGBTQ clients a lot with financial literacy and budgeting, that sort of thing. Debt Free Guys, one of my favorite guys, they just became experts at Yahoo Finance. And they typically, look for things for gay men, but they open to the rest of us, of course. Queer Money Podcast is a wonderful resource for all different things financial. These guys have been focusing on this now for years, and they were young gay men in, a very swanky city, and they found they were $50,000 in debt and decided they didn't want to do that anymore. So they moved to not such a swanky city, got the debt down in a very short period of time, and now they're still living fabulously, is what they would tell you. So there are ways to do it without having to break the bank. So that's up for me. Please become a Sage Education Ambassador. Please get involved. Please engage in some of these things. Do what you can to reach out to folks like me and others if you're afraid to come out in the community. I've had a lot of very good responses, a lot of respect, a lot of support. I have financial advisors who are not gay coming to me and asking me how to talk with their clients. It's been a good experience for me. I know some of you are afraid, but if you are gay and you're in the industry, come on out if you can. If you're an ally just sitting on the sidelines, try to advocate for us every once in a while, see how it feels, because we really need you in that position. So thank you again. We'll take some questions. We've got a few minutes, and if there's anything I can do for you, let me know.
Laura, thank you so much. That was amazing. I learned so much. If anyone has any questions, please put your questions in the Q&A using Zoom, and we can get to them. I'll kick off the questions with one of my own. What are most LGBTQ questions looking for in a financial professional?
What are the most LGBTQ?
What are they? Yeah, what are LGBTQ clients looking for? How can advisors help, and how can they create in a safe and affirming space?
Well, they're looking for someone who wants to meet them as a whole person. They're looking for someone who is interested in, really just finding out who they are and not having any judgment, not having any generalized comments about it, rejection. They just want to be met where they are. I think one of the things, when you first meet someone, if you say, tell me about your family, instead of, are you married? Who's your wife if it's a guy, and who's your husband if it's a woman? I think if you just open it up a little bit, you find that feels good to them as well. Also just to know that sometimes when they haven't saved as much in retirement, and they feel intimidated by that, find out why. It's really hard to live with rejection. Some people call us the underserved communities. I like to say resilient. We're a resilient community. So, just find out, where those touch points are. Ask them about their story. When did they come out? You ask that story, and that a lot of times helps them to say, oh, they are interested in me.
Wonderful. Let me see if any questions. Have have you had any conversations with clients about dusting off estate planning docs prior to 2015?
Yes, we've had a lot of conversations about that. In fact, we like to look at estate plans every 3 to 5 years. I'm not an attorney or give legal advice, but I really want to look at them because my my clients who are LGBT are really worried about our Marriage Equality Act being rolled back. So they're talking about, do we need trusts again? Do we need to really worry about this? And we are talking about that. If there's significant wealth, maybe they do need trusts again. We're talking about how their healthcare directives work, our living wills. I've had situations. I'm a hospice volunteer. I was a hospice volunteer for 2 years ago. And I had a situation where I had to go in and help someone with end of life discussions with the doctor because they wouldn't let their significant other speak for them. So when I talk to my clients now about the estate documents they had before 2015 and what they have now, it's really important to update things because the language has changed. So yeah, I think you should update those items and review them every 3 to 5 years. Plus their trusted contacts change, right? I mean, not everybody in the document is someone they want to have their trusted contact.
How can I advise LGBTQ couples who are not married?
Well, I would talk to them about the reasons why they're not, and get that understanding first. Sometimes it's just fear of recognition. Sometimes it's important to not do that, but if you can look at some strategies with your software and show them married, not married, you may be able to show them how that wealth transfer, like with beneficiary, with IRAs, spouse transfer is a lot better than actually getting a transfer from an IRA non-spouse. You can look at just how things transfer at death. If it's jointly owned, then there's a situation there where at least they're protecting themselves. But sometimes, we have separate properties. So, the other thing I always worry about is family stepping in. I know everybody loves everyone, but what happens in my community many times is the estranged children come back, or the person who doesn't have children is very ill, and mom's trying to take care of her still, and the kids come in. So there's all sorts of things that happen. So I'm not saying marriage is a safeguard, but sometimes having an extra layer of legal support is really important.
Thank you. There's also a question about ex-spouse Social Security benefits. Could that be a reason not to get married?
Well, sure, that could be a reason not to get married. I think you should call the Social Security Department and discuss it. The woman who was on our Pride Planners is a lesbian, and she works at Social Security for 20 years. So she's really good at some of those questions because, it depends what age you are, and when you get married. We did have a client who was taking her former husband's Social Security, as a benefit. So she waited until after 65, actually. She waited to get married. Yeah, she did, because we wanted to make sure she was taking that Social Security for a few years, and then, because this was several years ago, and then I think they got married at 70, because at 70 we switched her to her own, and then they got married. So yeah, sometimes there's a strategy on when to get married, whether you're gay or not.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time. I just wanted to thank Laura so much for the time that you dedicated to this and for all of your very valuable insights. We really appreciate you being here, and just your warm and very educated knowledge. For the AFCs in the audience, the code is FFP 13. That's Frank Peter 13. I'll put it in the chat, or my colleague Jordan will put it in the chat, and we'll also email it out afterwards. For the CFPs, we will report your continuing education credit for you. So thank you again.
Thank you, and y'all have a good day.